I love movies, that's the thing. I mean, I only make movies because I love them, which has always been the way I've made films. I don't make films going, oh, this is going to, win me this award. There's none of that. I only make films that really interest me, and I hope to keep doing that. I don't want to make stuff for money. I aren't really motivated by money, to be honest. I'm motivated by doing things that, are interesting and will hopefully, excite other people. The first time I read Predicament, I laughed out loud. I really enjoyed the language of it. I think is probably my, my favourite thing in Predicament. The dialogue is fantastic, and I think Ronald Hugh Morrieson was really great at picking quirks in character. Like, everyone in the story sounds like a specific character, and being a fan of Deadwood and shows where they love to play with that language, that kind of excited me. Especially once you get actors involved with that sort of, interesting kind of dialogue, that sort of became quite exciting. I remember first giving the screenplay to Jermaine to read. I said, I'd love it if you wanted to play the spook. And he got back to me, and the first thing he said to me was, did you write the dialogue? And I was like, well, no. Every bit of dialogue in Predicament comes straight out of the novel. With a little disclaimer near there. There's a little bit of dialogue where I've had to, to make it work for a movie, I've had to sort of take parts of that dialogue and play with it. But pretty much it is his words, and so it was neat to hear a very gifted actor come back, and that's the first thing he said, and he wanted to make it for that reason as well. Predicament is about a teenager called Cedric Williamson who's very lonely, and his father's been building this oddball tower on his front lawn at it's 8 stories high, and like a frozen tornado is been nicely described as. And he is desperately in need of a friend, and then along stumbles Mervyn Topek, who's this sort of dodgy, manipulative con man. Who's not a lot older than Cedric, but he's a lot wiser than Cedric, or he thinks he is. And he befriends Cedric, and at first, us as the audience are thinking, oh, this is a great thing, Cedric's finally got a mate. But pretty quickly, after Mervyn gate crashes his life, things start to go really pear-shaped, and he meets one of Mervyn's oddball mates called the Spook, who's played by Jermaine Clement. And these 3 unlikely lads basically team up and get involved in this blackmailing kind of plot, which goes really wrong. There's quite a few twists, and it gets into some pretty dark places. Ronald Hugh Morrison's cousins are still alive, and one of them, who has now seen the finished movie, just was so complimentary of the movie. It was fantastic because, of course, I've always said from the get-go, if I'm going to make this movie, and this is for any if I'm fortunate enough that someone gives me their screenplay, I want to make that person's version of that work. I want to do the best I can for that work, because I don't own it. I want to put my own vision into it and everything, but it has to come from the original work. And so of course, having a Ronald Hugh Morrieson who wrote the novel isn't alive anymore, unfortunately, but so I'll never know what he personally thinks of it, but to have members of the family kind of give it the big thumbs up has been fantastic. I think the attraction to Ronald Hugh Morrieson for filmmakers is that he was all about writing entertainment. He was all about giving people a good time, and if you read Predicament, at the very beginning there's a really nice piece written by Maurice Shadbolt where he talks about how he was quite frustrated. He felt sort of hurt by New Zealand in a big way, because here he was writing these really good books. Scarecrow did very well for him, and but he was never considered to be a real artist because he was writing these, this pulp, writing stuff that was fun. And I think it's something, I know it's something that, I love being in New Zealand. I love living in New Zealand. But it is something that you do notice, and you kind of go, look, let's just love our artists, and let's just really appreciate what we do. And it's sort of, I think, if there's anything we can learn from him is like, there was this guy who was writing these great things, and we just left him to pretty much die alone. And it's kind of wrong. It's like, if we want to see great New Zealand movies and hear great New Zealand music, we've got to support it. And let's just stop kind of beating it up. That's the thing you can learn from Ronald Hugh Morrison. I love working with comedians. I think that comedians are very, very brave performers, because if you can stand on a mark and you can just deliver gags, that is a really, really brave human being. And it's no surprise that really great comedians make fantastic actors. And I don't, care if they're making comedy or they're making, really serious drama. There's an actor way more clever than, that's pretty much why. So, working with Jermaine, who I've, known for a while, is always a lot of fun. I mean, he's a very smart guy. He's very funny, but he treats comedy very seriously. You can talk to Jermaine about how the beats are going to go to make the laugh. He knows all that stuff. And Heath Franklin is the same kind of mind. He's a very smart guy. Very, you wouldn't want to play Scrabble with Heath Franklin. He's very, very good at words. Tongan Ninja came about because my cousin is Tongan, long story in our family tree, and his name's Sam Manu, and he is an actor and also happens to be black belt in just about every martial art known to mankind. And so that's how it kind of came about. While shooting this little thing for a short film, somebody joked and said, "Wow, we could make a feature out of this." And cut to, a year later, there we are making Tongan Ninja. And the real guts of the idea for that one was Jermaine, myself, and Sam shooting this fight sequence in Wellington, which was sort of like, we didn't know if it was going to be a short film or a feature or what it was going to be, and it was lots of fun. And then that's sort of the end of the movie, and then, there was no script. We pretty much just worked out, what should happen. We sort of loosely followed a Bruce Lee movie, which we all loved. But, it was a lot of fun. It took 3 years, I think, to shoot. We did a lot on weekends and, and things like that. It cost, not a lot of money to make. It was fun. I remember one night shoot, Jermaine turning up, and he was, I think they'd been overseas doing some of the early Concorde stuff, I think. And we had we'd hired one cherry picker with one light in it or something. And Jermaine walked in and go, "Whoa, things got a bit flash around here. Have you just done an ad, Jason?" Because that's what I would do. I'd direct a commercial, and then, a big chunk of it would be spent on hiring stuff for Tongan Ninja. Diagnosis Death was Raven's idea, and I just loved it, which is that you've got this guy who basically is, he's a pretty sort of ugly human being, and then he ends up getting diagnosed with this fatal disease. And so the actual genesis of the idea that I really loved was that it was like, what if the place that you had to go to get your cure was, haunted, and actually you didn't even want to be there. So it was kind of like, not only are you dying, but you've got this other horrible, scary shit happening. Diagnosis Death was funded in a really interesting way. It was basically made on sort of like a share system. So what we did is we attracted people to put some money into making this movie. The plan was always to shoot it to a certain point and then go to the Film Commission and get development money to help us finish it to DVD. So it was always planned to be a DVD, and we had a very firm idea on how we were going to do that. Unfortunately, the Film Commission didn't like the movie. Which meant that for a moment there, were kind of a bit stuck. But luckily, we managed to get some help from people in the industry who came on as investors, and that really worked out for them, because Raven and myself ended up selling it to Lionsgate in America, another studio in the United Kingdom, Vendetta released it in New Zealand, Warner Brothers in Australia.